Most of you know my daughter was married here this weekend, and I officiated at the wedding. And of course, with wedding ceremonies, there's always a little homily or a few words of wisdom that are inserted into the ceremony. And, I thought if I could have given my daughter, this wedding couple, or maybe any wedding couple, one word of advice, it would be that marriage is like life, which is like faith. It really only grows through the hard times. Now, I was thinking about that, meditating on that thought, because last Sunday we also joined in a small memorial service out in the garden for Jim Marsh on the first anniversary of his death. And it was a beautiful time together in the garden. We laid a stone, and people shared memories. And I had actually been contemplating one of his sermons a few days earlier. I don't know how it showed up, but the quote from one of his sermons went like this: "Faith doesn't come in the midst of serenity. Faith is always born of struggle." Now, I know that seems very simple and self-evident, but to me, this is the basic reality of the spiritual life. And Jim Marsh's life embodied that reality. Jim, he was a man of great faith, but he was also a man of great personal struggle. And for those of you who knew Jim, that wasn't obvious, because he had this carefree demeanor, this kind of incredible lightness of being, this broad smile, this easygoing way, and you'd never know that he had more than his share of difficulty in his life. He went through a painful divorce. He had a serious accident. His daughter had a debilitating illness, which has left her diminished. At one point early in his ministry, he was written off as a heretic by fellow Southern Baptists. So he had his share of difficulties in his life. But Jim learned that through his struggles, through the difficult and dark times, faith matures, and we can unearth the spiritual treasures and blessings that make us what we are. Let me share with you a text from the book of Isaiah. "I will give you treasures in the darkness and riches hidden in secret places, so that you may know that it is I, the Lord, who calls you by name." You see, if we persevere through the darkness, it can be a doorway into a bright new world. But this isn't easy, and it's not automatic. We really have to mine our experiences in order to extract the wisdom and the wealth that they inherently possess. So I like to think about my difficult experiences, my challenges, my painful experiences as a kind of a mine shaft, which, if I enter, leads me down into this deep core of truth within my own soul and within the very mind of God. And if somehow I can sift through and work through and pray through those experiences, I can glean a truth and a reality which can make me a freer, stronger, more complete person. But this isn't usually my first reaction. My first reaction is to get out of the situation, to escape, to take a shortcut, to find a quick fix, to get bailed out. And the reality is, whether you're GM or Chrysler or anybody else or AIG, everybody in our society wants a bailout. We all want a bailout. My first reaction is to kick into my denial mode, to attempt to edit out those experiences which I classify as negative or unpleasant, and to incorporate only the positive experiences into my life. But the truth is, without those dark and even painful moments, we would not be who we are. And we would never know life's deep, nuanced beauty. Now, this morning I have jigsaw puzzles on my mind. And I really haven't worked jigsaw puzzles since I was a child. But this last week, my mother and my sister stayed all week here in Florida. And one of the things they did to pass their time, aside from walking on the beach, was to work a giant jigsaw puzzle. And they worked it all week. They had it all spread out on a big glass top table, and it was a beautiful puzzle of shells, seashells. And my sister was captivated with the shells. She became what she called a shellaholic. Would go out every morning and pick up shells, and so when it came to pick out the puzzle, she got a shell puzzle. So I have jigsaw puzzles on my mind, and it reminded me of the story of someone who remembers working puzzles as a child. He said, all through my childhood, my parents kept a giant jigsaw puzzle set on a puzzle table in the living room. My father, who had started all this, always hid the box top, the top of the puzzle, with the picture on it. The idea was to put the pieces together without knowing the picture ahead of time. Different family members would come visiting and would work on it, sometimes for a few moments, sometimes for hours on end until all wee hours of the morning. Over the years, we finished dozens of these puzzles, and I got quite good at it. I took certain satisfaction in being the first one to see where a piece or a group of pieces would fit together. I especially loved the time when the first hint of a pattern would emerge, and I could see what had been hidden all along. The puzzle table was my father's birthday present to my mother. I could see him setting it up gleefully, pouring the first pieces of the first puzzle from the box onto the tabletop. I was only 3 or 4. I didn't understand my mother's delight, as they hadn't explained the game. My dad thought I was too young to participate, but even then I wanted to. Alone in the living room early one morning, I climbed on the chair and spread out hundreds of loose pieces lying on the table. The pieces were fairly small. Some were brightly colored, some were dark and shadowy. The dark ones seemed like spiders or bugs, ugly and a little frightening, and they made me feel uncomfortable. Gathering up a few of these, I climbed down and I hid them under the sofa cushions. And one of my more devious things, I have to admit, is to take one piece of the puzzle and hide them. For several weeks, whenever I was alone in the living room, I would climb up on the chair and take a few more pieces, the dark pieces, and add them to the ones under the cushion. So this first puzzle took my family a very long time to finish. Frustrated, my mother finally counted the pieces and realized there were more than 100 missing. She asked me if I'd seen them, and I told her what I'd done with them. She then rescued them and completed the puzzle. I remember watching her as piece after dark piece was put in place, and I was astounded as the picture emerged. I'd not known there would be a picture. It was quite beautiful, as it was a peaceful scene of a deserted beach. Without the pieces that I'd hidden, the game and the picture made no sense.